Good morning, everybody. Jim, Donna, thank you very much for allowing us to have an opportunity to come and share this morning. Actually, this is the third program for Life Skills. It started last year. There were 2 events last year, and now this is the third one. So we learn as we go. And this is a Mercy-sponsored event, and I think that the topic we're going to kick everything off with here this morning is just quite simply it's integrity. And as I started to assess and think about this and being given the opportunity to speak on it, I'm like, well, Jim, why'd you choose me to speak on integrity? Number one. And then number two, I thought, well, I've never really spoken about integrity. But as I really began to study it out, I'm like, oh, okay, I believe I've lived a life of integrity. Yes. So I have some moral foundation and authority to speak on the particular topic. And Jim said, well, why don't you just give a little bit of background about who you are in your life? And so I thought I'd start in this way. It's interesting because yesterday, my dad would have turned 100 years old. Wow. And my dad passed away about 10 years ago, but he was just on my heart. I was thinking about it. And my father never became a disciple. He died not knowing the truth or accepting it. And so from that standpoint, that's one thing. I was just reflective this week. Number two, my mom is still living, and she's almost 97 years old. Wow. And in about, 4 weeks, literally 4 weeks from today, Sharon and I will celebrate literally 25 years of marriage. Oh. We both come from very large families. We come from a background where our parents stayed together, which is less and less, isn't it, in these days. And what our parents instilled in us was values, right and wrong. And also, when we grew up, the 60s and the 70s, was really just basically a work ethic. To just put your head down and work. Yeah. And so many other things will kind of just take care of themselves if you're willing to work hard. So these are things from a character standpoint, foundation of who we are, where we came from, and how we were raised. But secondly, I spent about 25 years in the corporate America, in the corporate world. And in that 25 years, I rose through the ranks. And when I exited out of corporate America, I was a vice president overseeing and being responsible for over $1 billion of responsibility, literally the bottom line. And with that, the responsibility of overseeing literally hundreds of people, every facet and function of business that you can imagine. Everything fell under my responsibility. And it's interesting because I have 2 very quick stories I want to share with you. One at the start of my career and one at the end of my career. And this is a foundation of understanding integrity. My very first job, literally my very first week, and I started in the food industry, so it's the supermarkets, right? And I started as a retail sales representative, calling on supermarkets. And so the very first thing that I wanted to do is the largest store, the most important store, and I wanted to make an impact. And so I wanted to do what we call a reset. So when you walk into a supermarket, which I actually love to do, there was a situation where there's a strategy behind it. The products that are on the shelf, where they're located on the shelf. The pricing, the positioning, the marketing, everything is set to optimize the sales of the product. So my training and my discipline was to work it to the advantage so that my company's products would sell the most products. Makes sense, right? So I wanted to do this reset, my first one. I wanted to put all my training into practice, and I was really eager. So the manager of this particular supermarket, I said, well, what time do you get in the morning? He goes, well, I'm here literally between 4:30 and 5 a.m. I said, okay, I'll be there. So I'm like, who in their right mind is going to get up that early and go and be ready? And again, this is 35 years ago, and I carry this with me to this day. I was there at like 4:20, waiting at the front door, pitch dark. And he pulls up and he says, what are you doing here? I'm ready to do my reset. And not knowing what I didn't know, it was the longest, hardest day of my life. I was literally there for 14 hours. Wow. And fumbling and bumbling. He was so merciful, but you know what that did? It bonded me with him that anytime I walked into that store, I basically got anything I wanted. I could sell him anything. I could do anything. My products had the best position, all these things. So that's the foundation of integrity. You can start today. Secondly, and very quickly here is a foundation of integrity when, literally, at the end of my career, when Sharon and I made a decision to really give up everything and move to Los Angeles to help to start the new movement. And at that point, now it's 25 years later, and I'm in a very influential role in my organization. And I knew that the company was going to be going through a reorganization because I was very involved in these things, making a decision about people's lives and their careers at this point. And I knew that, knowing that the company was going to go through reorganization, but in my heart, I was going to resign. I was going to give up my job for the kingdom to move to Los Angeles. We were living in Minnesota at the time. And I thought about it. It was the second hardest thing I've ever really done in my life. And I'll never forget going in and sitting down with my boss and letting him know what I was going to do. And God honored it because I was righteous. And I did the right thing, knowing I couldn't in my heart, knowing several months later I was going to leave and not lay myself on the altar to say, I'm quitting. And God blessed it because they ultimately took care of us. Even though they tried to talk us out of it, don't do it, you're crazy, why would you do this? We really literally had to put ourselves in a situation where we did the right thing. And it made our transition so incredibly smooth. God took care of us, He's provided us because we did the right thing. We were filled with integrity. So those are two examples that you can carry in your life. And then for the last 10 years now, Shannon and I have worked for the church. Now we oversee the administration for all of our churches around the world. That's one role that we have. We also shepherd the church, and then I also serve and have helped build our college, the International College of Christian Ministries. So we wear many different hats and do many, many different things. Most of it is behind the scenes, but we really find great joy in what we do. Now for administration, why is integrity important? Because it's not just the numbers. It is accounting and finances, but it's also governance, it's incorporation, it's immigration, it's law, it's compliance, it's payroll, it's taxes, it's insurance, it's policies, it's procedures, it's church reporting. It's all of these things. And if we aren't integral in these areas, Satan can use it against us and help divide what we're trying to do. Yeah. Now, let's go to our Bibles, because now I want to get into it. Proverbs chapter 11. The Bible says right here, Proverbs chapter 11, verse 3, it says, the integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. Yeah. All right, so right here, simple foundation. Integrity is what guides us. It's what leads our steps, how we conduct and carry and lead ourselves. It's our moral compass. And I found this amazing study on integrity on Bible.org.
All right.
Okay. And they did all these case studies. And the character most desired by people in a leader is honesty and integrity. Amen. Time and time again, it is identified more than any other trait. Honesty and integrity. Now, it makes sense, doesn't it, if you think about it just for a moment? Because if you're going to go follow someone, whether you follow them into battle, follow them in business, or follow them in ministry, you want assurance that the leader can be trusted. Yeah. Right? Don't you?
Yeah.
And so you want them to keep their promises. You want them to follow through. Yeah. So the Bible gives us all kinds of examples of this to help us, to teach us what integrity really looks like from a biblical standpoint, so we can apply it in our lives and make the gospel attractive to people.
Right.
And some of my favorite ones are Joseph in Genesis. Oh, Genesis chapter 39, he has this interaction with Potiphar and Potiphar's wife. And she basically says, come to bed with me. And he goes, how could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? Mm-hmm. And he flees. Yeah. And what are the consequences of him staying righteous and doing the right thing and being a man of integrity? It puts himself in prison. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where he's forgotten about. But he did the right thing. Mm-hmm. And I think about Job in chapter 2, and this is his wife in chapter 2. And she says, Job, why are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die. He lost everything. You know, he had boils from the tip of his toes to the crown of his head. He must have been just in excruciating pain, physically, emotionally, spiritually, everything that had gone on. And his wife just give up, quit. Just curse God and die. Stop holding on to your integrity. And then in Daniel chapter 6, it said that they could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. And we know that he's a man that got down on his knees to pray 3 times a day. And we know that he was thrown into the den of lions for his belief. But he endured and God protected him because he was a righteous man. Corruption holds back nations. I have a firm conviction in this. Corruption is horrible. It suppresses people. And we really see it, particularly in the third world. In particular in Africa, but in Nigeria, in India, it's a two-class system. Those that have and those that do not. Because there's a lack of integrity. There's a lack of integrity. We still have a moral foundation to build off of it, not only in the freedom that we have in America, but because we are disciples. And there's a great example in the Bible too, in 1 Samuel. I want to share this one with you. Come on. In 1 Samuel chapter 12, starting in verse 1, this is Samuel's farewell speech. Samuel said to Israel in verse 1, chapter 12, I've listened to everything you said to me, and I've set a king over you. Now you have a king as leader. As for me, I'm old and gray, and my sons are here with you. I've been your leader from my youth until this day. Here I stand, testify against me in the presence of the Lord and his anointed. Whose ox have I taken? Whose donkey have I taken? Whom I have cheated? Whom I have oppressed? From whose hand have I accepted a bribe to make me shut my eyes? Have I done any of these things? Will I not make it right? You've not cheated or oppressed us, they replied. You have not taken anything from anyone's hand. And I love this because we know that Samuel is the son of Hannah. And Hannah was a woman of her word, right? She wept bitterly because she didn't have a child, a son. Wow. But when she committed, she devoted to God. She was a woman of her word. She said, give me a son, and I will hand him over to you forever. So he had instilled in his character was his mom. And it's amazing because this is his farewell speech. He's the last judge before the first king, which is Saul. And we know the demise and just the downfall of everything that happens with regards to that. The people wanted a physical leader like the nations around them. They didn't want to make the Almighty God their ultimate leader. And he led Israel for decades. But here is a man, and here is an example of the importance of honesty and integrity. You know, these two characteristics really are directed on how we regard things. And he gave us an instrument and an example here. He said, listen, hey, my possessions, how I do my business, I'm going to hold myself even accountable to the people. I'm going to humble myself to that level. You know, so not even one person rose up to make any claim against him because they couldn't. Because he was a man of integrity. How he conducted his affairs. Now, people want to know that their leaders can't be trusted. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. You know, people too often get focused on convenience and performance and just saying the right thing and not wanting to put the effort in. Character, it means something. It really does mean something. We have to instill character into ourselves. And the Bible is very clear on these matters. You know, throughout Scripture, God focuses on the fact that he is a God who makes and keeps his promises, his covenant. And indeed, God can be trusted. Let's go to Psalm 105.
All right, come on, man.
I had seen this, but I had forgotten this. In Psalm 105, here it says in verse 8, God is a God who remembers his covenant forever. The word he commanded for 1,000 generations. 1,000 generations. I love this because character is a form of being trustworthy. Biblical integrity is not just doing the right thing, but it's a matter of having the right heart. So you got to allow the person you are on the inside to match who you are on the outside.
Yeah.
And the word here that I think that describes God is consistency. Matthew chapter 1 gives us the chronology from Abraham to Jesus, and it says it's 42 generations. Here, the Bible says that God keeps his promises for 1,000 generations. For 1,000 generations. He's consistent. And that's where we're going to get our strength, our motivation, and everything else. Here's a quote from a guy by the name of John Ortberg. Disciplined people can do the right thing at the right time, in the right way, for the right reasons. Just like God. That's how we've got to conduct ourselves. And what I think, as we start to think about this, The reality is that people are going to let us down. They're going to disappoint us, but God will never let us down. God will never, ever let us down. Hebrews chapter 13, here's what it says.
Come on, Michael, this is great.
Yeah.
Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8. This should give us confidence. It says that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. All right. God doesn't change, and he's consistent. Jesus doesn't change, and he's consistent. So, Hebrews chapter 6, verse 18. The Bible says it is impossible for God to lie. And it goes on to say, by this we can be greatly encouraged. That this hope is an anchor for our souls, firm and secure. So what's the application of this? If Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, God, it's impossible for him to lie. And it's what gives us hope. It's an anchor for our souls. It's James, for me, it's James 5:12. It says it's simply let your yes be yes and your no.
There it is.
Just be people of our word.
Right.
If you say you're going to do something, do it. We're disciples. We are different. And to be the light of the world, we really have to have deeper convictions about how we carry ourselves, how we conduct ourselves, and the people that we are. It means we probably sleep less, work harder, more sacrificial, lay down our lives, be the best employee, be the best student. But God is glorified through it.
Yeah.
And it's him that gives us strength. So we don't go on our own strength and burn ourselves out. If you're going to live another 70 years, you're sprinting a marathon. We got some work to do.
Yeah.
And it's going to take some time. But so the question is that when you're interacting with people, you ever get burned in a relationship?
Oh, yeah.
And so Proverbs 13:12, I find this interesting. It says that hope deferred makes the heart sick. And so when we think about relationships, hope deferred makes the heart sick. And I say, you know what? Much of the heartache we experience is directly related to our unreliability of other people. But I say it starts with ourselves.
Yeah.
We're the problem.
Right.
It's not other people. It's how we choose to respond and how we choose to react.
That's it.
If there's hope deferred in your heart, take a look in the mirror.
Right.
What do you need to do to change in order to really glorify God? So that your yes can be yes and your no is no. Okay, so we fail to face up to our inadequacies at times. We just stuff them or we ignore them. We don't want to deal with them. Well, you know what I call that? That's pride.
Ooh.
Number one. Number two, you know what? We can find ourselves falling into the trap of the Pharisees. I call that hypocrisy. So we're either prideful or we can fall into the trap of being hypocrites.
Yeah.
And if we think about it, hypocrisy is just the absolute opposite of integrity.
Right.
And in Matthew 23, Jesus literally goes through and lays it out regarding the Pharisees. The Pharisees are the religious rulers of the day. And the leaders of the people. And if you think about it, 6 times he literally goes through and calls them hypocrites. And he says, woe to you, you hypocrites. So the leaders are basically, what a hypocrite is you say one thing and you do another. They're not men and women of their word. And we need to be men and women of our word, if we can really, really call it out for what it is.
That's it, bro.
And so, isn't that interesting? So just the opposite of what the people were looking for in a leader, what these leaders were. They were hypocrites. And so, look at it from this standpoint. In today's terminology, we talk about ethics and morals, right? And even from a business standpoint, there was a lot that we had to do. We had to take training and courses and literally pass online exams around ethics and morals of the company.
Wow.
If not, legal or HR would come in and have a discussion with you. You had to uphold these ethics and these morals. Frame it this way. Ethics are the standard of doing right and wrong. Ethics are what we say. And morals, same thing, the standard of right and wrong, but it's what we do. Now here's where integrity comes in. And because the Pharisees would say the right thing, but not do the right thing. They weren't tying them together. And even at the root, in the foundation, and the definition of integrity is to integrate. It's to integrate. It's to bring together. And so, to be integrable means we say what we're going to do. It's not complicated. And so it's really getting at the heart of things. Luke 6:46, I love this passage because Jesus says, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? I mean, Jesus is going to lay it out and expose it for what it is. All right, so closing, let's look at it this way. There are 5 signs that would indicate if you lack integrity.
Oh, wow. Come
And
on.
I'll close on that. But number 1, we lack integrity if it's all about you. Inwardly focused. Number 2, you lack integrity if your self-esteem rises and falls on people's opinions. Meaning you're swayed by public opinion versus staying the course and doing the right thing. Number 3, we lack integrity if you're hiding something.
Come on.
Now, here's where wisdom comes into play. You don't tell everyone everything. That's just not wise.
Yeah.
But you've got to tell someone everything. You've got to have an inner circle.
Right.
You have to have people in your lives that you can be very open with, that know who you really are and what you can deal with. Number 4, we lack integrity if we fail to do what you said you're going to do. If you become a person that does not do what you say you're going to do, people will lose confidence in you. So I say the answer to that is say less and do more. And finally, a sign that if you lack integrity, you just compromise too much. It's not about getting everybody to like you or finding the easiest path. It's doing the right thing. So what do I personally look for as indicators of integrity? How do you really know if someone's integral, right?
Right.
I think we would say that Jesus was integral.
Yeah.
The character in the world I'm probably most impressed by is Abraham Lincoln.
Yes, sir.
His nickname was Honest David. In the office, in the house, I have 2 portraits in the office. One is of George Washington, who led us through the Revolution and was the general, but he was the first president. The other one is of Abraham Lincoln, who ended the divided nation under slavery. And so we have to have examples in our lives. But how do you really know? Here's some indicators to consider. For me personally, number 1 is the person timely. Not only are they on time, are they early? Number 2, especially when it comes to a career and looking at an individual's resume, your curriculum vitae, it's who you are.
Yeah.
It's who you are on a piece of paper. And one of the things I always look for is a gap in the resume. Either educationally or work. There's a gap. Like, well, wait a minute, there's 5 years missing. What did you do that 5 years?
Right.
It's an indicator of integrity. Appearance is very important. In the world, it's how does someone shake your hand? And if you think about it, in the kingdom, it's a kingdom hug.
Yeah.
How good is the hug? How genuine is the hug? How loving is the hug?
Yeah.
These are indicators. And finally, do you look people in the eye? Or you got what we call the shifty eyes? Because the reality of it is, if you're a person of integrity, we look each other in the eye.
Amen.
That's what we do. So these are some of the indicators that are there. And so, in closing here, in 1 Timothy,
Come on, bro. Come on.
Amen.
here's the call. It says in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 15. Paul writes to Timothy, be diligent in these matters. Give yourself wholly to them so that everyone may see your progress. It's just about making progress. Watch your life and your doctrine closely. Persevere in them, because if you do, you save not only yourself, but those that hear you.
Right.
This is what I think that we've got to take to heart. It is really about showing people that you're making progress. It's how you conduct yourself, how you live your life, and it's what we believe, which is the truth. And it's all about character. It's all about being consistent. And what you're going to get over these next several weeks is really, today it starts with personal responsibility. You're going to get an opportunity to understand really truly what financial stewardship is all about. Then you're going to be able to really understand how I can get my career developed. But it's all for two reasons and two reasons only. Advance your life and help your family.